Hey,
Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation and accepting to be on my show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Now, and is it Sai? Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Sai?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, great. Awesome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So, how are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
So, I've gone through your profile. I can see you're doing a lot of work. So, I thought to tell about your work and a little bit of your previous experiences and your interests to my audience.
Right, right. So yeah, so my background is in visual arts. So painting, portraiture, that kind of thing. Some graphic design work, some freelance work like that. Um, and sort of on this sideline aspect, I've been doing a pretty modest blog and video blog about current events and politics and issues like that, and particularly, I guess, how it relates in Canada, but I think it's also kind of a global thing at the moment that people are trying to figure out how the world is working.
Awesome. So, before talking more about yourself and about the work that you're doing, can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Yeah, well, my name's Michael Harris. I'm an artist from Toronto, Canada. I do painting, oil painting, represented by three galleries in Toronto and one in Australia, in Melbourne. I do a lot of graphic design work, freelance work, and I've also been doing a blog and a video blog for the last few years concerning the issues of the day and how we're all trying to figure our way through what's been coming at us over the last few years.
So that's great. So you're an artist from long time.
Yeah, my whole life basically, but professionally for probably 20 years at least, I guess, at this point.
Okay. So I'm
Mhm.
sure you might have done a lot of work.
Yeah, plenty. I mean, I've got a website that maybe we can send a link to if people want to have a look at the work, and that'd be easier than explaining it since it's it's all visual. I've done some music as well in the past.
So what makes you do whatever you're doing?
Whatever I'm doing, well, if it's uh, the artwork aspect of it. Like I said, it's something that I've always done. So since I was a very young boy, I've always drawn. And, when I guess other kids were doing sports and things like that, I was, in my room drawing superheroes and making up my own characters. And so I've always done that. I was always sort of like identified as a kid growing up as the artist kid, right? There's always one in every, I think, school or classroom. There's the kid who's the artist. And I always tended to be that guy in schools. And so, it's just sort of becomes a thing that you do more and more and you get better at. And then at some point you figure this, is something that I should, do professionally. And, so that's how I got into it. And it just kind of carries on from there. Pretty much the way anybody, I guess, falls into any kind of profession.
So where is that imagination comes from?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's nobody in my family who is artistic or paints or draws or does music or anything like that. So I don't know if, is it a past life thing? Is it, is it something like that? But yeah, the inspiration, I guess, for um, doing the work that I'm doing now is it's just sort of what comes to you at the moment. I think, some uh, idea or some concept kind of uh, grabs you, and then it's about exploring that concept or that visual idea that you had in your head. And the way it really works is that at least the way I work, is that for a lot of it, I'm not sure how it's going to turn out in the end, which is part of the excitement about it. That's what makes it so interesting, is that you're kind of discovering it as you go along. And every time you start a new piece, it's always a challenge to, how do it's like you're starting something from scratch all over again. So you've got the technical kind of skills that you've built up, over years of using the materials and all the practice that you do. But still, every time that you start a new piece, it's starting from scratch. And how do you do this? How do you actually make this work? And you discover it as you go along. So it's a really, for me, that's the interesting part of it, is the process of it. And I think every time you finish something, you've learned so much in what you've done, is that that's the jumping off point for the next piece of work that you do, right? So you're always kind of growing and learning as you go, and I don't think you ever stop figuring out how this happens and how it works and how to do it. And I think that's what makes it interesting for me. And I think it makes the work interesting for people to look at, because I think there's some aspect of that searching and that inspiration that comes across in the final work. I hope so, anyway.
Great. Before talking more about the great work that you're doing, I just want to say about my sponsor for this episode. So, which is Start Adam. Sales and customer facing teams often switch between several communication tools, causing time management and visibility issues that can slow down deal velocity. The solution: join Start Adam, where conversation converts. With Start Adam, your team can centralize all communications within your chat tool. No more switching, waiting, or fragmented chats, because chat messaging is where business gets done. Sales teams can stay in Slack or Microsoft Teams and connect with customers, leads, or candidates on their existing chat tool, building better relationships through constant communication in inbound and outbound messaging. Make it encrypted and compliant. Plus, bring all communications in your CRM or ticketing system. No data entry required. Join Start Adam to enhance customer relationships and close deals at hyperspeed with unified chat. Thank you very much, Michael, again for being on my show.
Yeah, that's great. Where in India are you?
Yeah, I'm from South India,
Oh,
Hyderabad city.
okay, yeah, because I did a lot of traveling. That was part of my learning process as an oil painter. I brought my paints and brushes with me, and did a bit of a world tour, backpacking. And I spent about a month in India. It was a long time ago, but yeah, I loved being there.
So, what do you find something that inspired you to draw?
Well, it's like on that trip, every time that you arrived in a new place, it was 100% inspiration all the time, because everything's new. And so you're seeing, uh, you know, people and the way people dress, and the, uh, the buildings, and just the atmosphere. And that's all very inspiring. And for me, part of that traveling experience was to bring that kind of openness back home with me, because when you're in your own home country and places that you're used to seeing all the time, you're around it all the time, it tends to fall into the background and you stop noticing it. So I wanted to bring that kind of wonder that you have when you're in a new place, those eyes, that sensibility to being in my own country and my own city, and being able to see kind of my environment through the eyes of a traveler, sort of keep that kind of mindset, right? And so that's makes you look at very mundane things in a new way. And if you're doing work like landscapes, or if you're doing cityscapes, if you're doing people, you're always sort of expanding the way you see what you're looking at. And it's a nice thing to see your own environment with kind of fresh eyes, and to kind of keep yourself kind of on your toes, to be open to whatever is coming at you, and to let that kind of inspire you.
So what is driving you? What is motivating you to draw different things and imagine different things?
Uh, I think it's partly curiosity about people and about the world. And in a way, when you like draw or paint something, you kind of grab it and bring it into you, right? So it becomes closer to you than simply observing it at a distance. I think there's some aspect of it like that, where you know it's you sort of it's like thinking visually. It's like thinking about the world and taking it in and kind of processing it in a way that now you can look at it as sort of saved, it's sort of captured. It's like sometimes I think it's kind of frustrating in a way to so even if it's something beautiful, you're sort of confronted with this beauty, and it's like you want to do something with it. You want to feel it more deeply, or grasp it in some way. And I think artists have that uh, offered to them, right? I think that's part of the thing that drives them, is trying to relate more, trying to be closer to that, to make that solid in a way. Those feelings of being moved by something, or being inspired, or being even upset by something, or something that makes you sad, or something that makes you wonder, and you're sort of driven to get into that in a bigger way, in a more solid way, I guess. And painting, I guess, other forms of art as well, poetry, writing, music. I think it's all a way to kind of, for the individual to kind of become more connected to that thing that's causing these feelings in you, that's sort of um, moving you and waking you up to something that's bigger than yourself. I think it's something like that. It's very hard to kind of articulate, but and I think artists throughout history have been asked to kind of articulate what is it that you're doing, and why do you do it. And I think they all wind up kind of stumbling their way through an explanation for it, as I'm doing now. But it's something like that. It's something like becoming more involved with the world and the wonder of it. Something like that.
So as an artist, you are expressing your imagination in the form of art, and you are making people to connect with it. You express because you want to express, or you express to impress.
Yeah, well, I think the drive happens regardless of whether or not it's going to impress somebody, right? I mean, this is part of the thing with doing art. You kind of do it first, and then you put it out in the world, and you see how what it does out in the world, as opposed to maybe some other kinds of jobs where you get an order to create something, and then you know this is what that person is going to want, and it's kind of paid for in advance or something. In this world, you create something and then see what happens once it's sort of released into the world. So there's that drive that is kind of happens regardless of the reaction you get to it. But I think in the to do it professionally, you also have to have that professional attitude of, this is going out to a market, an art market. So you have to have a very high standard for yourself to sort of be able to be part of that sort of professional world of doing art. And hopefully you do impress people with it. I think, for me, when a piece is finished and I can kind of put it aside, maybe not look at it for a few days and then go back to it. Sometimes I'm impressed with it. Like if I'm impressed with it, if I think, wow, that's pretty good, how did I do that? Most of the times my reaction to it will be similar to other people's reaction to it.
And in this 20 years, what kind of work that you have done and what you like most?
I have done a bit of everything. I've done, pretty much any kind of medium as far as painting and drawing goes. So watercolors, acrylics, gouache. I've wound up doing oils primarily, which is my favorite thing to do. And for subject matter, again, I've pretty much done anything you can think of, from landscapes to still lifes to portraiture. Um, Not so much abstract work, although, I've gone in and out of that occasionally. It's sort of a fun thing to do as well. I like representative work, so stuff that you would look at and you'd go, yeah, that's a person and that's a field or a tree, that kind of thing. Um, Yeah, so I've done a little bit of everything. Probably my favorite thing to do is people. I love painting people, um, but also, landscapes. I like doing landscapes as well. And I've done series of tree paintings. So it's interesting. But regardless of what the subject matter is, it's always kind of this similar sort of draw to do it. And then the process of exploring the thing that you're trying to represent in oil paints, and how do you use colors to do that? And because at the end of the day, you're basically, as a painter, you're putting colored goo on a stretched piece of cloth. Um, so how do you do that? The skill in that is to be able to use those materials in a way that create something in the mind of somebody else that means something, that has some meaning to them. So it's an interesting kind of magic or something that happens, and I'm always uh, interested in seeing the responses from other people to my paintings, and sometimes they will have interpretations that I didn't intend. So people bring their own interpretations to artwork, and then they tell you, "Oh, this is what you meant by that," and you're going, "Sure, yeah, if that's what you think, then maybe I did." This really is. It's a very interesting thing to experience. It's to do something and to have people respond to it in any way, I guess, but particularly when it's a positive way.
So how do you see things in your mind that nobody has seen until you expressed it?
Well, I think everybody sees things in their mind that nobody has seen, right? I think that's the norm for everybody. Um, and then you have, people who do what I do who can get that out of their mind and turn it into something physical, right? So sometimes I'll have, like I did a series uh, years ago of, I don't know if you know the Mounties in Canada. They're the kind of the police force with the red tunics and the hats and riding the horses. So I did a series of crucified Mounties years ago. It was one of my first solo shows that I ever had. And that just came to me as an image of like a Mountie and kind of a classical looking painting, but crucified on a cross, right? Um, and it was almost as if I had to come up with what I had to do. It just felt like I needed to get that image out, right? So that was in my head and I needed to get it out. So I did a painting of it. And then I turned it into a series and saw it as having sort of social political commentary on, maybe where Canada was at that time and Canadian culture and attitudes and things. Um, but sometimes that's just what happens is that you'll get an image in your head and turn it into something that you can look at. And it's almost like a drive or an impulse. It's like you need to get that out. Yeah, it's a very peculiar process.
So how much time you take in order to put your imagination out?
Yeah, I mean that's it's an interesting thing because the question that people ask most when they see one of my paintings is how long did that take? It's usually the first question they ask. And even though they've been asking that for 20 something years, I'm never prepared for it. I never have an answer. And I'm always kind of like, oh, gee, yeah, how long did that take? Because like I don't really keep track of it while I'm doing it. I don't keep track of the time. And a lot of the times I'm working on a couple of pieces at the same time. So you'll put one aside for a bit and start working on another one and then come back to that one. So I usually have to kind of estimate how long these things take. And from weeks to months is usually the answer. But yeah, it can take a long time, and there's a technical side to it as well, because sometimes depending on how you're applying the paint and what your process is, you need to let things dry before you go back to it. And but it's usually a pretty, takes quite a while to get a finished piece from start to finish.
So what is the unusual thing that you have painted?
My usual subject matter, you think?
Unusual,
Oh, most.
unusual things. Yeah.
Um, Well, the crucified Mounties were pretty unusual, and I did a series, did two series in for shows in the gallery in Australia, and the first one, uh, this is another example of having images in your head that you just need to get out. It was figures, like dozens of figures, coming together and climbing over each other and forming these kinds of towers of people climbing up each other. Uh, so that was pretty odd. So I did lots of that kind of imagery of these little people all kind of climbing up each other. And then the next show I did in that same gallery, Jackman Gallery in Melbourne, was a series of black and white paintings of people covering their eyes or having their eyes covered. Uh, and they were fairly large images. And some of these people had um, maybe computer technology embedded in them or coming out of them, and kind of peculiar things like that. but those are really nice paintings. Uh, but challenging, I guess, probably challenging for, it's not the same as, a nice landscape where people would go, okay, that's easy to get, as opposed to people in these sort of black and white images. Um, I had one of it was a very large painting of two guys fighting, and they both had their eyes covered with some kind of cloth, right, wrapped around their eyes. Um, so that's kind of a kind of image that you would put out there, and other people will bring their own meaning to that. I like to kind of leave it that way as well without being too explicit and telling people this is the meaning that you need to derive from that image, right? It's nice to put those images out there, and then people are kind of, it inspires in them thought and controversies, and a lot of the times that they're actually representing their own kind of subjective processes by whatever they wind up seeing in the paintings that you do. So it's just this really interesting process between the sort of the concepts and ideas of the painter and then the audience who look at it. They kind of come together to make the meaning of the work.
So how is working globally?
Globally,
Yeah,
as in having a show in Australia and
yeah.
working. Yeah, it's really interesting. There's sort of technical challenges with, just obvious things about shipping work and all of that kind of being available for shows. The two shows I had in Jackman Gallery in Melbourne, I have family and friends there, so that makes that a lot easier. Um, and I was in Australia for quite a while during that period. Uh, it's interesting the work that carries over between different cultures and the work that's very localized. So if I was doing landscapes in Australia, which I had done a few, um, those won't necessarily translate to having a show in a gallery in Canada because the colors are different and the trees are different and vice versa. It wouldn't, like North American landscapes wouldn't translate to people in Australia. And for something like landscapes, I think it's mostly people want to see their own environment reflected back to them. That's the connection for them, right? So if you're showing them landscapes from a different end of the planet, then they don't feel the connection to it as much, I think. So there's little things like that, But if you're doing these kind of sort of imagery paintings that are more sort of universal in subject matter, and that people can bring their own kind of interpretations to, then I think it crosses over.
So how do you develop this skill, this ability? How you got this ability, and what is your inspiration to do this?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's like it was something that I was born with. And I never, like, I don't have any memory of not drawing and painting. It was since I was as young as I can remember, I was doing it. And my parents always would tell me that, I think my mom said, I was born with a pencil in my hand drawing stuff. So I guess it's just something that, in my case, I was born with and that I love doing and I really identified with strongly as being an artist. This is what I do. And I always had this kind of conception of myself when I was a kid of doing this and getting better and better at it. And, I would see other, you'd go to art galleries or see paintings and books of, these great painters. And when I was very young, I thought that's what I have to do. You have to try to get to that level, right? So it was this process, and starting out with, I always looked at oil painting as sort of the ultimate form of visual art. And so, but it was kind of daunting to me because there's a lot of solvents and color, all these kinds of things involved with it. So I started off very sort of tentatively by, maybe starting with colored pencils and then maybe watercolors. That seemed a bit safer. And then eventually, okay, I'll move into acrylic paints, and that will be the step before I finally move up to doing oil paints. And I'm self-taught, so I never went to school for any of this. So it was all kind of my own searching and figuring it out as I go along process, right? So, which was good for me though, because it got me using like so many different mediums and becoming fairly proficient in whatever I used. And so now if I get any kind of commission jobs, like I've had some illustration jobs recently that or request was that they were done in watercolor, so I can do that. If I have to do things in marker or pen and ink, I can do that. But yeah, just this process of kind of growing up and my ability to do this kind of grew up with me at the same time. I assume that's what happens for most people who do visual art of some kind. I think so, anyway.
So how much you understood about painting and drawing?
How much do I what, sorry?
How much in this 20 years of your work experience, how much you understood about painting and drawing?
Um, how much did I understand about it? I think well, anybody starts out not understanding anything about it. Certainly, I'm trying to understand it as a career. There's no real instruction on that. So it really is kind of a process of learn as you go, and self-education on it. And what would happen is you'd see other artists, famous artists that had some kind that resonated with you in some kind of way, and then you kind of looked into their story, and that kind of gave you a bit of direction, and you would look into other artists and see their techniques and their style, and then you would try that out a bit. So it was always that kind of process of trial and error and figuring out as you go along. And if like in school, in like grade school, primary school, or high school, you'd have art classes when I was a kid, but it never really worked for me because I was always better than the teachers at drawing and painting, and so I never felt like they were qualified to give me instruction, which really annoyed them. And it was, it's obviously pretty arrogant for, a 12-year-old to think you've got nothing to teach me, old person, or whatever it was. Right? But, in a way, though, there was a lot of confidence in what I was doing at the time. And even when I went to high school and you had more kind of organized art courses in high school, but they were very generalized. By that point, as a teenager, this was so my own thing that I resented anybody trying to tell me how to do it or to do something. You have to be doing this today. I just resented the whole idea because it was so my thing. You'd go to school and okay, you're going to get taught history and math and all these other subjects, but when it comes to this, this is my thing, and someone would have to be themselves a professional artist, someone that I would have recognized at the time as being very, very accomplished as an artist for me to go, okay, you can give me the instructions on this. Whereas in school, you just had people with a general knowledge, I guess, of art who were teaching kids who had a general interest in art and not any kind of specific, passion for it. So, yeah, I learned a lot more actually after I left school, I think, than I ever did in school. Yeah.
So as an artist, how do you look at world?
Um, it depends on what level of the world, I guess, we're talking about, right? I think part of the thing as an artist, I think, at least for me, is that uh, I think you tend to be more observant of the world, and you tend to look at things uh, as artworks. So if you're walking around in your city, for me, my eyes are always falling on things that are about color and about form and about shape and the movements of people in spaces uh, and then you kind of connect that to the culture that you're in and how this is connected to that. So there's an aesthetic thing that happens spontaneously, and then you kind of bring a sort of interpretive level to it. That all kind of becomes one thing that you bring to actually sitting down in your studio and deciding to do a painting about any particular subject matter. But yeah, if we're talking about looking at the world just visually, then it's just kind of constantly uh, evaluating things aesthetically. And I think if you do this all the time, if you do it professionally, then your sort of awareness of uh, the aesthetic nature of your environment gets very heightened. So you're always kind of sensitive to it. And then, which makes you sensitive to ugly things as well. When things are done in an ugly way, I think it really stands out to you. Whereas a lot of other people, it's just the background that they're walking through at any given time. Something like that, I think.
And what kind of responses you get for your work?
Yeah, generally really good. Um, One of the things I really like is that, um, there's a lot of people who don't have much direct involvement with uh, visual art, right? So they might have gone to, an art gallery in school, or they might have gone once or twice over the past 10 years or something. And so they don't have any real thought or feeling about it. And for a lot of people, the most interactions that they have with art is in books and reproductions. Um, and so that's what they think like a painting is the picture in the book that they look at. And when people like that come into, my home or my studio, to see people who I know don't have a lot to do with the visual arts engage with paintings in a very positive way. I find that really exciting and interesting. I think people, when they're in front of something that somebody has painted, made with their hands, and it's, as you were saying earlier, impressive, I think it affects them. I think people are kind of wired to appreciate art and painting. I would like it to have more meaning, I guess, in our culture, I'm not sure how it is in India. In Canada, movies and music and or maybe even a little bit of literature to an extent are much more take up much more space in the popular culture than painting does. I'd like people to have more access uh, to to visual art, to painting. In Toronto, there's a yearly outdoor art show right in the center of the city, and things like that are really good because it becomes a thing for like the anybody to walk through and to get exposed to a wide variety of art. So more things like that I think are really really positive. Yeah.
So you're a graphic designer as well.
Yeah. Actually, after high school, I went to a college here in Toronto for graphic design. I think I went for I think a year, but I didn't like it again because uh, I wanted to paint. I wanted to do what I thought was real art, and this just seemed very boring to me. And it was obviously geared towards advertising. And at the time, I probably thought, I'm not going to sell out and be an advertiser or whatever, sell cornflakes boxes or something. Again, pretty arrogant at the time. And then I went back for another year or so, but yeah, it just never really appealed to me too much. But I learned the skills. I learned a lot of the skills uh, to do graphic design. And so I've designed CD covers and had various other commissions, and that's more like that's much more like work when you're doing graphic design because you're being, as sort of we were saying earlier, there's a bit more of constraints on it that are being put on you by the client, right? But it's something I like doing as well. If the subject matter is interesting, and if they give you enough um, free range, I guess, reasonable amount of free range to still express yourself and to do something that means something to you, and they don't try to control you too much in that process. It can be really an enjoyable process as well.
So every time when you draw something, how do you have that strong imagination and you put it out in the form of art and you make people to connect with it and communicate with it?
Yeah, I think, and I'm not sure anybody, but I think anything that you put your focus on, you develop and it grows and you get better at it. And I think people who do art, that's their focus. Everybody's got a degree of imagination. Uh, it's like anything else. If you were a carpenter, I can bang some nails in and make a birdhouse that will fall over if a bird ever lands anywhere near it. But someone who has focused on that, they become an expert in it. They become great at doing that thing. And I think it's the same thing with creativity or inspiration or imagination. If that becomes your central thing, then it develops and it blossoms and it becomes, more, it defines who you are a lot more. So I think that's all it is. For me, I started out as a pretty imaginative and creative kid, and also unusually good at drawing. And you get positive reinforcements for that when you're a kid, and so that encourages you to continue to pursue it, and that brings more positive reinforcements. So you tend to kind of pursue what you get patted on the back for doing, and as when you're very young, and then that becomes your thing. That becomes who you are, how you approach the world, I guess,
And what do you think that brings out maximum potential of yours if you draw something?
Well, how do you mean maximum potential?
Your ability that you can show the kind of knowledge that you have in creating anything. So what do you have anything that you feel challenging?
Um, yeah, the entire thing's challenging. Sort of like I said earlier, it's there's um, when you start a new piece, particularly if it's a subject matter or you're trying to do maybe a style that you haven't done before, it's very challenging. Um, uh, but that's the thing that pulls you into it. I think that's the thing that pulls anybody into anything worthwhile doing is that they like the challenge. They like the being confronted with your limitations. Can I get past that? Instead of like, I think some people might, in some occasions, when they're confronted with challenge, they might resist. They might withdraw from them. But I think people who embrace those challenges, I think the reward comes down the line as you do that. The thing with doing anything visual is that you see that reward in front of you at the end of the day, and you can see, okay, 10 years ago, that challenge brought me to that level. Now that when I encounter that challenge, I'm at this level. So you can see your own development over time, uh, and that reinforces the insight that facing those challenges brings about great change. It brings about great development and evolution in yourself and in what you do. So, and it's with anything, right? It's being invited to speak to you. It's like, well, I haven't done that before. Let's do that. you know?
So, uh, uh, the 20 years of experience, when you started 20 years ago, the world was different. Today,
Hmm.
the world is different. So, how you are using technology for your artwork?
Technology. Well, I'll tell you, that the biggest advantage, well, one of the biggest advantages is digital cameras. So, and for the most, banal reasons, like, so one of the sort of things that you need to be doing all of the time if you're doing art professionally is taking images of your work. And so when I was starting this, I was using film cameras. And the best way to take pictures of paintings is in natural light. So you'd set them up in my old backyard in my old house, and you know be taking pictures because you need to put portfolios together, and to go to galleries and have records of what you've done. And you had no idea if any of these images that you were taking turned out until you brought them to the good photo finishing store, wait a week, and then get this envelope full of printed photos out, and you're looking through them, and it's like, well, that was out of focus, and that one was overexposed, and that one was underexposed. And sometimes you just have to do the whole thing all over again. And as soon as digital cameras came in, it was like, I can take as many pictures of these as I want, try all the different exposures, get the perfect thing, and then crop them on Photoshop perfectly. And it just solved like 90% of the problems that you have with constructing your portfolio and things like that. And then, of course, just, digital technology for finding references for certain things, so you go to image search if you need a particular reference for, something that you want to include in whatever you're working on. And I did a commission about a year ago for somebody who wanted, I think it was about maybe a 20 by 30 illustration in watercolor of himself sitting around a table full of all of his heroes. And there was this diverse mix of people from Neil Armstrong to Pavarotti to actors and musicians and John Lennon and all these people. And so I used computers, I used image search to find out the best images of the people to reference. And then I was able to assemble a kind of a mock-up of the final piece so I could see the right proportions and put people in the right places and put the client in the middle of all of these people and try moving things around before I ever set it down onto a piece of paper and then starting that process, So that's incredibly convenient. It changes everything, as well as, being able to have your website. So galleries and clients and potential buyers, they can go straight to your website and see your work. They can contact you directly about things. The more you'd think about it, you'd come up with more and more ways that technology has helped the whole process of being an artist. And I really
Yeah.
like uh, imagery manipulation on computers as well. I like doing that. I like that process. I like using Photoshop. Uh, that's another thing that, you can teach yourself and get fairly proficient at it. So that was just another creative outlet, another visual outlet when all of that became available.
Where do you present your work?
Where do I present it?
Yeah. Where
Okay, so
people can see it.
I have a website at michaelharrispaintings.com. So that's the best place to go. There's a Facebook page as well with under the same name. I've got a couple of galleries. Gallery 133 here in Toronto is the main one for me, as well as another gallery called Art Interiors here in Toronto. I've been with those people since they opened. I think they just celebrated their, I don't want to say 20th year. That seems a long time. They've been around for a long time as well. Great people. And then Jackman Gallery in Melbourne is another place where my work is represented. So I'm around there. I've been around the block.
So how do you define yourself as an artist?
Um, I guess the most simple way is as an oil painter. That's what I think of myself as an oil painter. And that would specifically be a representative oil painter as opposed to an abstract oil painter. But yeah, I think of myself as a painter in that tradition of Western painters.
So what do you like most in artwork?
Yeah, I like this kind of stuff that I do, right? That's what I like, and that's the stuff that I've been inspired by, and kind of hold myself to that standard. So it'd be all kinds of varieties within that, but mostly I like uh, representative uh, painting. So things that where the artist is creating images that you understand what you're looking at, where you can understand that you're seeing things that are represented in the real world. That's what I prefer the most. There's an extreme of that in painting called photorealism, which technically you have to be very proficient. You have to be very good at it. But sometimes that can be a little dead because you're just trying to reproduce another image as closely as you can. Um, Skill wise, it takes a lot of skill to do that, but I don't find that to be very uh, inspiring personally. I don't find a lot of that kind of work to move me. I like the mistakes. I like the moments that happen in a painting that you weren't planning, that you're responding to what's happening in front of you. It's kind of like if you would think of improvisation in jazz or something on a guitar, where you're just kind of in the flow state. Things are happening and you're going with it, and you're amazed about what you're seeing happen in front of you as somebody standing beside you would be, that kind of thing. I like that.
And how you want people to remember your artwork after 100 years?
Well, after 100 years, it won't matter to me at all because I won't be here. Uh, but who wouldn't like to be remembered and well thought of and have their efforts that they made during their time here appreciated. And, I, if anything, I would like people to get pleasure and joy and feel inspired themselves out of what I do. I'm always very grateful and happy when people respond positively to the work that I do. When other people tell me it has meaning to them, that gives it a great deal of meaning to me beyond simply what I experience that from doing it. So the more of that, the better. That's what I would like.
And as an artist, what is your observation about my work? Have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube?
Of your, I glanced at a couple of things. Yeah, very beautiful. You have an aesthetic sense in your own work, I find. I should do a portrait of you.
So, what is your experience in this conversation?
Very nice. Very good. You're a lovely person, and I get the sense from you that you have a lot of curiosity about people, and that's why you do this, that you're interested in what makes people tick and who they are, and you want to get in contact with as many people to connect with on that level as you can. I think it's amazing. Why do you think you do what you do?
So I do kind of same thing that you're doing.
Yeah,
I'm trying to put my imagination in the form of videos
exactly.
to the world, and I want people to watch it and see it how how different people are doing different things in the world.
Right. You find that very gratifying to be able to bring that to the people, to other people.
Yeah, because if you show something that is not existed before, like you said, somebody not imagined something that you are expressing, that gives you satisfaction when you're putting it out and when you're presenting it very nicely and very clearly, how exactly that you felt.
Yeah, that's great. That's so great. Yeah. Yeah, you're doing a great job at it. How long have you been doing this?
3 years.
3 years. Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. Just getting started.
Yeah. So I actually did masters in software engineering and
Right. Yeah.
bachelors in computer science and engineering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now I'm
Some.
doing some, yeah, right now I'm doing some cloud DevOps engineering projects and technology projects. I'm a tech guy. So that's my full-time job. Apart
Right.
from that, I'm connecting with people around the world. More than 100 countries experts I have connected and trying to explore the minds, like how people are thinking and what they are thinking and why they are thinking like that and why they are doing like that and
Yeah.
what is the purpose and what is making them to do whatever they're doing. So,
That's
yeah, as an artist, as a experienced observer, absorbent, how how this experience, like more than 700 interviews I took in last 3 years. So how this experience, collection of communicating with different kinds of people from different parts of the world, how this is going to add value to my career.
how you're asking me how that will add value?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I think you know how it adds value, and that's why you're doing it. It's because the more that you expand your understanding of people, and the deeper that you can think about what you do and reflect on yourself. You think about the ideas that other people have brought to you, the minds that you've connected with, and then how does that not enrich your own life and your own capacity to approach the world? I mean, imagine the opposite. Imagine having little to no connection with other people. How could you do anything productive or creative? Right? It's that feedback and that input that we get from other people, and how they've done what they've done, and how they've accomplished things, or how they failed to accomplish things. Those things are incredibly informative to everybody who wants to understand life and the world. And that's the thing. I think that's great that you have that kind of passion to do that, and to give it as a gift to other people.
it's a great observation. So can you spell your website to my podcast listeners so that they can see the work that you're doing?
Yes, definitely. So it's Michael Harris Painting. So Michael Paint. Oh wait, no. Start again. Michael Harris Painting. MichaelHarrisPaintings. Michael Harris Paintings, all lowercase.com.
So I'll put the web link in the description of this video and also on the screen as well. People
That'd be
who finds our video on YouTube and also on the internet, anywhere in the social media can able to see the work that you're doing and able to learn from you, and also they can buy the paintings of yours.
that'd be great. That'd be really good. I appreciate that.
So can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Yes, absolutely. That'd be really nice.
And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yes, you can, Sai. Absolutely. I'm all for it.
Yeah, and in next year, 2024 May, I'm coming to Ontario, like for studying and another degree there.
That's great. We
So
gotta catch up.
yeah,
You want to
just
do that? Like let me know, and we'll get together. I'd love to talk to you in person. That'd be fantastic.
yeah, I'll text you when I be there.
Please do. I'm serious. Really, you should. That'd be great.
This is extremely valuable, connecting you and knowing the work that you're doing and telling about the work that you're doing to my audience.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I'll put your website also, your work in my website as well. People who visits my website can able to see the work of yours.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate that too. That's really nice of you.
Yeah. Thank you again, Michael, for your valuable time and sharing your valuable experiences and answering to some of my questions.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Really nice to talk to you and to meet you.
Take care, sir. Thank you.
Okay, you too. See you, Si.
Bye.
Start Adam. Sales and customer facing teams often switch between several communication tools, causing time management and visibility issues that can slow down deal velocity. The solution: join Start Adam, where conversation converts. With Start Adam, your team can centralize all communications within your chat tool. No more switching, waiting, or fragmented chats. because chat messaging is where business gets done. Sales teams can stay in Slack or Microsoft Teams and connect with customers, leads, or candidates on their existing chat tool, building better relationships through constant communication in inbound and outbound messaging. Make it encrypted and compliant. Plus, bring all communications in your CRM or ticketing system. No data entry required. Join Start Atom to enhance customer relationships and close deals at hyperspeed with unified chat.